Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Elyria City Council for November 21st, 2022. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Brubaker, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Also, those in the audience and on council, if you could please put your phones on silent or off, that'd be greatly appreciated. Ms. Clerk, I have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sarah.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian. Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
We have some. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to Lorain County Board of Commissioners pursuant to Chapter 1135 and 1156 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, for a drive-up window on real property located at 1230 North Abbey Road.
Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Please come up, state your name and address for the record. Over here to your right.
Hi, Gary Fisher, Fisher and Associates Architects, 554 West 9th Street, Lorain, Ohio.
Hey, Mr. Fisher, you're here. We're here. Do you have any comments in regards to what's being proposed?
Yes,
in front of us tonight?
I'm the architect employed by the county commissioners to work on the project. This is a small drive-up window that they found during COVID. It would be helpful for folks that are either disabled or unable to enter the building because of illness, to be able to pick up or drop off paperwork at the building without having to walk inside. So that's primarily what this is going to be used for.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Fisher? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you.
Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to Lorain County Board of Commissioners pursuant to Chapter 1135 and 1156 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, for a drive-up window on real property located at 1230 North Abbey Road.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-183. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held on Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located at 483 North Abbey Road, Elyria, Ohio, from a R-MD residential medium density district to a B-N business neighborhood district.
Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located at 483 North Abbey Road, Elyria, Ohio, from a R-MD residential medium density district to a B-N business neighborhood district.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-184. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located at 1444 Lowell Street, Elyria, Ohio, from a L-I light industrial district to a H-I heavy industrial district.
Are there any proponents? Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Duff. I am employed by Jones Lang LaSalle to represent Beacon Roofing Company. My address is 127 Public Square, Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the project or why you're here?
Yeah, the project is an existing building, an industrial-type building with office in the front. There is a warehouse area in the rear of the building, and it is a building material, primarily roofing material company, one of the larger companies in the U.S. The need to go with a heavy use is in order to do outdoor storage, and that is really the only need that we have for the heavy use. So,
Okay. Any questions from the council? All right, very good. Thank you for coming up, Mr. Duff.
thank you.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? I declare this public hearing has been held.
An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located at 1444 Lowell Street, Elyria, Ohio, from a L-I light industrial district to a H-I heavy industrial district.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-185.
At this time, we're going to have to go back to the public hearing for the first item on the agenda, which was, that was passed as ordinance 183 in regards to the drive-up window over and through there.
So we're just going to re-vote. I'm going to read it, and then we'll just re-vote again. We don't need to go through the public hearing.
Yes, through you, Mr. President and Mr. Clerk. Mr. Lippian has indicated that he had desired to abstain, so I'm requesting that council as a whole take a re-vote for the record. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. President, just because I'm employed by the county commissioners, I think it's prudent.
Sure. Okay, very good.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to Lorraine County Board of Commissioners pursuant to Chapters 1135 and 1156 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, for a drive-up window on real property located at 1230 North Abbey Road.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its third reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Abstain.
Motion carried. We have one abstention.
10 ayes, 1 abstention. Ordinance 2022-183.
Thank you all very much.
That's all the public hearings?
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sierra. Second. Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield is not here this evening. Safety Service Director Brubaker, as he is approaching over there. Now be,
You know how creepy that is to sit across from there
all right.
and look at that big head looking at you?
Mr. Brubaker, if you please state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Brubaker, 342 Springbrook Court, Elyria, Ohio.
Thank you.
As you all know, tonight will be my last meeting here with City Council, and it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the residents of Elyria for so many years. I'm truly humbled to say that I've been lucky to serve under 3 different mayors, which is pretty much unheard of, if never done before. So I want to thank Mayor Bill Grace and his staff, Mayor Holly Brenda and her staff, and Mayor Frank Whitfield and his staff, including my 2 assistant directors, Mr. Williams and Ms. Culvert, particularly for the last 3 years that we've been able to work together. The experiences under all 3 were vastly different, but they were also vastly similar, and I appreciate their confidence in me. I want to thank City Council. Many of you I served on when I was a City Council member, which seems like eons ago, quite honestly. But the relationship that we've had and the way we've been able to work together to get things done, and the confidence that you have showed in me to call me at all hours of the day and send emails all the time was appreciated. And I'd like to say that through the help of our city departments that we were able to accomplish the majority of the things that you folks had requested. So I do appreciate your confidence in serving alongside of you folks, and there are many council members that I've worked with that are not here this evening. I'd like to thank Law Director Deary and her Assistant Director Bruning in their office because they kept me on the legal side of things. I don't think we've ever gotten in trouble for any of the crazy things that I brought to them, but I do appreciate them and their support. Finance Director Pileski and Assistant Director Farrell for keeping me under control when it came to spending, but also finding money when our departments needed it, and we needed to get creative in some areas. Clerk of Council Bullocks, who was prior to Clerk of Council Lotko, and their staff, Reagan and Colleen, Nell and Carol, I appreciate their help in getting our referrals in and keeping the meetings flowing. Judge Bennett and his staff, Judge White and his staff, and Clerk of Courts Roth Gary over at the courthouse, although I had very little to do with their day-to-day operations, but one of my employees, Mr. Schneider, was in charge of maintaining their buildings and keeping in contact with them. And then the main people I wanted to thank were our department heads and our Chapter 165 employees, our supervisors, if you will. Those were the folks, along with the employees that underneath them, are really the ones that did the work that you sent to me. I may have triaged that. Some of that I may have went out and reviewed, but they're the ones who did the work and got the things accomplished for you. And I give them the credit, but I appreciate their support and their help over the years. Not too many safety service directors can say they weaned in a new police chief and a new fire chief. And I've had the fortunes of being able to do that over the last year, and working with those 2 men and helping them lead their departments has been an honor. And then our unions, EPPA, our Police Patrolmen's Association, as well as President Mitchell, AFSCME and President Parker. AFSCME is our largest employee-based people, our dispatchers under President Witt, and our IFF, our fire union under President Marks, and then the FOP, which there's multitudes of people on there, Captain Hammond, Sergeant Legas, and Lieutenant Cunningham. Working alongside of those folks has been also an honor and a privilege. I said this to the paper a couple weeks ago. You know, you can't say it too many times that you negotiated or helped and worked on a contract, 5 different contracts over the course of 7 or 8 months, and got them negotiated, cleared through council, and enforced for the next 3 years. So we know the dollars that we're playing with. I don't know that that's ever truly happened. So I appreciate the unions and their leadership for working with me. I've always said grievances are not bad. They're a way of rectifying an issue if it's a contract, but we've had very few grievances over the last several years. And I'll finish with this. So I was asked last week by one of the Chronicle reporters, you know, tell me some of the things that you succeeded in or you accomplished. And I rattled off some things such as the building department and the demolition program. But as I thought about it this weekend, everything that I just said here is encompassed by the relationships that have been built. And I'll start with the residents. The residents are the key to everything that I've been able to be involved and accomplished. The thousands of messenger messages or the thousands of tags that I've received on Facebook. Every one of them I tried to respond to, and I told Ms. Culvert tonight we were having dinner. I said, next Wednesday is my last official day on the books. My last day working is this Wednesday. I said, I'm just going to go on and tag her, just 'cause. But the residents are really what has driven me and my desire to serve in this capacity. Not one time do I think that I ever had a cross word with a resident. We may not always agreed. I may not have been able to work with other departments to accomplish everything that they've asked, but we did the best that we could, and I think for the majority of it, I would say that we accomplished those goals. But the relationships with city council, the relationship with department heads, police, the residents, that's really what I'm most proud of, because without those relationships, you can't collaborate and you can't get anything done. And if don't have those relationships built into what you're trying to do, the relationship isn't always about who's right, who's wrong. It's about accomplishing things and seeing the city move forward. And that's probably what I will take away from my years in this role and many roles that I had with the city. My role on city council is the relationships, and I will miss those deeply. I will start the new position in Avon Lake a week from Thursday, and I hope to take some of the experiences that I've had here and indwell them maybe in the needs that Avon Lake has. So again, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that came out tonight. Council, again, for you, my coworkers. And again, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But thank you, Mr. President, and that's my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. We've known each other since we were kids, and you've done an incredible job. Like you said, you've come through the ranks through the building department, parks, just working your way up through this through the city. And but it's those relationships that you've built over there. But you've been involved in the community as well as the youth coach and organizer there with that. And I think those relationships still go a long way, and you touched on that with your residents. So I wish you nothing but the best, my friend, in your future endeavors, and it's been an honor and a privilege to serve with you. Thank you. Anybody else want to make a quick comment? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Mr. Brubaker, I'm one of the ones that emails you all times of the night and day. I know you're talking about me, but I just want to say thank you, Kevin. And I said this to you 1,000 times. You and your team make me look good, and I appreciate you. And more than a working relationship, I consider you a friend. So I wish you the very best. And I have your personal cell phone number, so there's that. Good luck, Kevin.
Thank you. All right, very good. All right. Assistant Finance Director, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report other than to thank Kevin as well for all the help he's given the Finance Director's office, and we couldn't have done a lot of things without him, but it's been a pleasure working with you, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Very good. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also have no formal report. I'm available for questions. And also, Mr. Brubaker, thank you very much for everything. We've had a great time collaborating with you, and wish you the best on the lake.
Leary Police Department, Mr. Chief Pelko. Sorry about that.
I as well don't have a formal report, and we'll take questions when I'm finished, but I would also like to thank Safety Service Director Brubaker. On behalf of all the ladies and gentlemen of the Elyria Police Department, I thank you for your years of service. You have always been the utmost professional. Your leadership and collaboration amongst all city employees and the citizens of Elyria has been exemplary. You are the most dedicated person I've ever seen. You've always been responsive, whether it's answering the phone or coming out to crime scene at all times of the day or night. You are a mover and a shaker for the city, as well as a doer. We know we can count on you to get things done. You always have what is best for the city as your top priority. You are Mr. Elyria. You will be truly missed. We all wish you the best of luck with your new endeavor. Our loss is Avon Lake's gain. Best wishes. Take any questions?
Any questions for Chief? Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. President. Chief, how's No Shave November going?
It's going good. We reached our goal of $10,000, so now I have to extend it out to February 1st for the officers. So they seem to enjoy it. It seems to be a motivational piece. So I'd like to thank all those who donated for the cause, and we hope to do it again next year.
Thank you, Chief. For your fire department, Chief Pernesti.
So I'll start off, obviously, everybody knows, I'll start off with the bad stuff first, and then my little 2 cents on my boss. We had a rough weekend, you know. I think it's though that council and the citizens and everybody knows that, you know, check your smoke detectors. It's a case where in these fires, there were no working smoke detectors inside the apartments. I think we need to work together now with, and in the fatal fires, we're in multifamily dwellings. It's really motivated me now that since I've been chief, we've had 3 fatal fires in multifamily dwellings. And as hard as we try to inspect, we have to do better. I have to come up with some creative ways with the building department, with the law director, with safety service, to get out there. It's become a challenge, but one I'm going to be reaching out to council and all the other departments to see what we can do. But it's not going to stop until we collaborate and really see whether it's through ordinances or some laws on smoke detectors and sprinklers. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. I'm very proud. You know, I'm the historian of the fire department, and we've had several multi-lost fires or multi-fatals at one fire, but never in the history of the department we've had back-to-back fires where they've both been fatal like that. So it was emotional for my guys, and so keep them in your thoughts, but they worked their butts off. And some of these guys, a lot of them saw 3 fatalities in less than 72 hours, with a lot of them responded on the I-90 for a fatal accident and worked both fires. And then on top of that, we lost a Cleveland firefighter. And when it's close, you think about it because it's so close to home. So these guys went through a lot. So when you see a fire truck going by, think about them. They're people just like us, and they need your support. Any questions on that or anything for me?
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Chief Perneski, to you and your guys, job well done, and you are definitely in our thoughts. But I just have a quick question. I know some communities, they do the free smoke detectors where they pass out smoke detectors to residents. Does Elyria have a program like that?
We do. It's probably not advertised well enough. I know our union has done a pretty good job of purchasing them, and we give them out to those that ask. To be honest with you, I'd like to probably do it a little bit better, you know. And when we do get them, we run out, and it's just something that we need to probably push forward.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. That's a great idea, getting people smoke detectors, but I have some rentals, and when I walk into the rental and I hear beep, 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 do you know what that means? No, what is that? That means you got to replace your battery. So maybe a full program, not just passing them out, but making them more working smoke detectors. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right.
All right, so now, good part. I like to read a quote. I like military history, and I love generals. One of my favorite is Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. He was the leader of the British Army during World War II. And he says, my own definition of leadership is this: the capacity and the will to rally men and women to a common purpose and a character which inspires confidence. And that's you. I have mentioned before, I've been around a few safety directors. And they each have their different style of leadership. And the things that you taught me are just something that really, it made me a better boss. And that's something to say about your leadership. And I thank you. And one other thing, when you were talking about collaborating, the first attempt at this gig I had many years ago, when I told the mayor at this same council meeting that I didn't want to be the chief, one of my regrets was saying that I wish I could have stayed to better the relationship between police and fire. Well, guess what? Now that I was back here, that guy right there has gotten the police and fire departments together more than, and it's unbreakable at this point. And so it's perfect for the citizens, and it's even better for you. And so thank you. I appreciate everything you've done.
Ms. Sawerka says you're not coming over for Thanksgiving dinner.
She comes to my house on Turkey Day. Is she looking at me, though? Is she staring at me?
Thank you, Chief. Assistant Safety Service Director, Ms. Calvert.
I have no official report tonight, but also wanted to recognize Director Brubaker and thank you. It's been a pleasure to learn from you and serve beside you these 3 years that have sometimes felt like 10 years, but I mean that in the best possible way. And I wish you all the best in your new role and look forward to hopefully working with you in your new capacity as well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go delete my Facebook page.
All right, very good, thank you. Interim Safety Service Director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I don't even like having interim director on my name in the same room with you. So I've known you, 45 years, and spending this time with you over the last year and a half or so, I've come to admire you in a special way, and I appreciate what you've provided for this city and how you've mentored me in the relationship that we've established. Relationships matter, and we view Director Brubaker as the master of relationships. And it's evident when the first day that we walked around the city to all the departments, and it was amazing whether it was the things that you knew about just about every employee and their family members, and the depth of knowledge, and it was genuine, and so that's appreciated. I've enjoyed working with you. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and on behalf of the mayor and our staff, your leadership and your guidance, your example, you will be very much missed and never replaced. So thank you for what you've done for this city, and you're most appreciated. And we look forward to the success you're going to have where you're going, and we'll be part of your fan club. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. City Engineer, Ms. McKillips.
It's okay to have no report.
No report, Mr. President. But I do want to say to Mr. Brubaker, thank you so much for your leadership, your mentorship, our little conversations we have in the morning, you know, he's just a really good guy. But truthfully, you have helped our department grow. We went through some hard times. You were there for that. And we came out of it stronger than we were going into it. So you're going to be very much missed. And wish you the best of luck up there on the lake. And I'm a little envious because I like the lake, so thank you.
Ms. McKillips, Ms. Mitchell might have a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, not a question, but just a comment. Kathy, thank you so much. Mrs. McKillop's organized a ride-along between council and an engineer so that we could go out and inspect our streets. I thought I knew a lot about our streets, but riding with Mr. Forthover showed me I didn't know as much as I thought I did. It was very informative, it was very helpful, and I've got my street list done already. So, for the council members that have not yet scheduled your ride-along, please get with Mrs. McKillop and do so. And thank you. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions from Ms. McKillop? All right, very good. Chief Building Official, Mr. Farkas.
But I would like to say to Kevin, I recall when he first entered the building department from a different area, he came in with some fresh, new ideas, which I at the time thought those were pretty ambitious. On hindsight, that actually took the department where it is today, a much improved, more efficient department. And I want to thank Kevin personally for all his help and insight. And I guess I put it this way, his connections. He knows everybody. And if he needs to get it done, he'll make a phone call and get it done. And I have learned so much from that to learn and just be diversified. So Kevin, thank you from the building department.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Farkas while he's here? Thank you. Wastewater, Mr. Corzine.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. Director Brubaker, thank you. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your support, your wisdom, and your guidance. Thank you especially for all of your assistance through the pandemic. We were very well stocked at the wastewater plant from previous things. We had no idea what we were going to be going through with this thing, but you found vendors where no one else could. And that was just absolutely amazing for the whole city, among the millions of other things that you've done. I realize I'm a lot older than you, but I'll tell you what, I've got to say, I wish I had your energy. You talk about people being the Energizer bunny. I mean, you don't stop, you just keep going. But it's that energy that's actually driven us to do the best that we can, and has definitely kept the city moving forward. So we greatly appreciate that. We appreciate everything that you've done, and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Corzine. Okay, President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Finance Committee. Item number 2, Finance Committee. Item number 3, Finance Committee. Item number 4, Utilities. Items 5 through 6, received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There's one. Mr. Corbin. ARPA funds.
For those of you who do not know me, I am Councilman Corbin of the 3rd Ward. Recently, the mayor, Mr. Whitfield, encouraged council members to provide feedback on how they'd like to see ARP money spent for the remainder of the year. Councilwoman Simmons offered some, and Councilwoman Lippian did as well. I thought for what might be the best way for the 3rd Ward to use this money. I feel assistance funds for paying down the water bill for some of our most vulnerable and our most honorable, our senior citizens on a fixed income, and our military veterans who have served our country and protected our freedom. Therefore, whatever the mayor thinks might be best allocated, I am formally requesting monies from the ARP funds to be spent on reducing water and sewer bills for seniors on fixed income and veterans. Please let me know how we can work together to make this happen. The Third Ward is always ready, willing, and able to seek partners in helping our community grow. I hope we can work together to accomplish that. And let's start with the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin.
That's all the petitions from council members.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of demolition-related costs for 118 Lake Avenue, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said costs to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Center. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2022-28. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of demolition-related costs for 316 10th Street, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said costs to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Center. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2022-29. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent, inactive utility accounts and directing the clerk of council to certify said accounts to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snare. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2022-30. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution finding that the city has unfit for municipal use certain city property.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snare. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2022-31. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-186. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2022-45, known as the 2022 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-187. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to create a new capital project fund.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-188. Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance accepting the dedication of certain lands, easements, and rights of way for the installation of streets and utilities as provided for in the final plat of Harvest Meadows Subdivision Number 2.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-189. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with Frank Engel as leasee for the rental of approximately 20 acres of city-owned real property located on Murray Ridge Road to be used for farming purposes.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-190. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a two-year lease rent space located at 1463 Lowell Street, Elyria, Ohio, to store police evidence.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-191. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance amending Elyria Codified Ordinances, Section 932.03, General Discharge Prohibitions, and declare emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency. Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-192. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the wastewater pollution control plant, concrete masonry, and miscellaneous repairs project.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-193. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement or amendment number 3 to the agreement with CTI Engineers, Inc. for construction inspection services for wastewater pollution control projects.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2022-194. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a change order number 1 with DL Smith Concrete LLC for the 2022 street resurfacing program, Phase 2.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
It's 2022-195. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinances second reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located at 1100 Gulf Road, Elyria, Ohio, from a R-MD residential medium density district and R-MHL residential multi-household low density district to a R-MHL residential multi-household low density district.
I declare this ordinance has had its second reading. Public hearing is scheduled for 12/05 of 2022.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to Villas of the Valley Development LLC and Maple Waffles Land LLC for residential planned unit development at real property located at 1100 Gulf Road, Elyria, Ohio.
I declare this ordinance has had its second reading. Public hearing is scheduled for December 5th, 2022.
That's all ordinances second reading.
Ordinances third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 11/28, 6 p.m. All items referred. Joint CD Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 11/28, immediately following the Community Development meeting. All items referred. Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 11/28, immediately following joint meeting. All items referred. Utility Safety Environment requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 12/14, beginning at 6 p.m. All items referred. And Strategic Planning requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Monday, 12/5, immediately following council meeting. All items referred.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business. I see that there is a fathead over there of Mr. Brubaker. Anybody here is welcome to kind of take a photo op with Mr. Brubaker next door to me.
Never look
Very
better.
good. That's good stuff. Anybody else have any miscellaneous and unfinished business? All right, I want to wish everybody here in the audience and now the viewing audience a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your families. Enjoy it. Families are everything. And enjoy your time together with each other because that's what it's about. And with that, Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, seeing no other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Second by Mr. Sayre. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. This meeting is adjourned.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy yourself.